welcome to Fearless Friday. My name is Joy Rustoven, and I'm the Executive Director of Survive It. Next, I want to get to where is it? The second thing that you should know about your cancer.
So that second big question, where is it, is really talking about your staging. And when we're talking about staging, why do we even have stages? Well, the reason why we have stages is it gives us some idea of prognosis, meaning that everything else being equal, a person that has stage 1 disease is going to do better than someone who has stage 4 disease, meaning stage 1, the cancer is still localized. Stage 4, the cancer has gone far away from where it started. Additionally, depending on the stage, it's also important on what treatments may be standard of care. So if you have stage 1 disease, the standard of care is typically surgically cut it out, resect it. If you have stage 4 disease, typically the standard of care for most cancers, again, there's some nuances here, but for most cancers is systemic therapy. By that, I mean drugs, right? Whether they're targeted therapies, whether they're IV or oral, whether it's chemotherapy or immunotherapy choices. And in between, you may have a mixture of several things, right? In some cases, let's just go back to lung cancer, for example. For most patients with stage 2 lung cancer, the standard treatment is still resection, right? And if you have stage 3 non-small cell lung cancer, for example, the standard of care may be chemotherapy plus radiation, okay? And that varies from cancer to cancer, right? So for stage 2, breast cancer, for example, it really depends on what kind of surgery you have. And if, for example, you have a lumpectomy, you may need to have radiation after your lumpectomy. If you have a mastectomy, you may not require any radiation, again, depending on some of the other clinical factors that you learn after the surgery based on the pathology from what was resected. So again, the bottom line, staging is important because it tells me a little bit about prognosis. And it also really helps me hone in on what is the best appropriate treatment for my stage. The last thing is don't get confused, as you had brought up, is don't get confused about if you have cancer that spread from where it started, don't get confused and think that, oh my gosh, now I have bone cancer as well as my breast cancer. Because really, in a situation where breast cancer is spread far away to say like the bone, it's not really bone cancer that you have. You actually have breast cancer that's spread to the bone, okay? And so that's really important to understand as well. The other important thing I just throw out there for staging, why it's so important, is you have to know where you're starting from. So if I don't know where I'm starting from, let's just give another example. If, for example, I had lung cancer and the only staging study I had was imaging of my chest, right? Let's just say I got a CAT scan of my chest, but I didn't know if there was any bone involvement in my leg, or I didn't know that there was a lymph node in my groin due to my lung cancer. The problem becomes, how do I know my treatment is working? So the whole point of question number 2, where is it? It's critically important to know where I'm starting from, what my initial stage is, because again, it helps me with prognosis and treatment. But then separate from that, as I'm being treated or even monitored for my cancer, understanding where that cancer has gone to is critical to know whether or not my treatment is working for me or not. Because if I didn't look down in my groin or at the bone, then it's possible that that area was involved with cancer from the very beginning and we just didn't know, right? And so that's why it's so important to know where is it, not just at the beginning, but throughout the course of my cancer, especially before I switch off from one therapy to another, to know, again, resetting everything, where is everything now, right? And the other thing I would just throw in here, it gets a little bit confusing for patients, but this is about empowering yourself to say, I know as much as I can so I can understand why my doctor is making that decision with me. It should never, ever be the doctor alone that makes any treatment decision. It should always be you and the doctor together, understanding, why am I taking this action? Why are we going down a different path? And making sure that everybody's on the same page and understanding why that decision was being taken.
Agreed. And I think that that's a perfect segue. So knowing what you have, where you have it. So having the knowledge, if you're going to be an active participant, which is such a hot topic right now, is engaging the patient. But how do you do that? You know, a lot of patients unfortunately think that ignorance is bliss, and it's just enough to know where they found it. I don't want to know the stage. You just treat me. But as you were saying, it's really important that the patient have this conversation. Let's talk about things that I would like to do on a daily basis. I need to get on the floor with my grandkids or my kids, and I would like to still go to work. You know, talk about these real life goals and things that you need to take into consideration when you're having that conversation with your doctor. So that's our third point is, what am I going to do about it?
Yeah, absolutely, right? And these big buckets, you can put all of these, what do I have? Where is it? What am I going to do about it? And it's not just at one point. You want to come back and revisit these things all the time as you're going through the journey of, you know, how am I going to defeat this cancer, right? And so as part of that process, you know, your goals should be discussed day one. By that, it means, is this something that's curative or is this palliative? Understand what that means. If it's not curative, it's not the end of the world. If we had our choice, of course, our preference would be, hey, you're done, you're cured, don't worry about this anymore. However, we can, in today's world, with all of the tools that we have, we can make cancer a chronic illness. And that is a worthwhile goal. It is a worthwhile goal if I can say I can control your disease with maybe some of these drugs, and you're on these drugs maybe as a chronic pill for the rest of your life, but if I can control your illness, is that not still worth it to you, right? There's a caveat to that, though. The caveat to that is, it's just not controlling my illness at what cost, right? And so how functional am I? How's my quality of life, right? And so part of this is, can I control my illness with good quality of life? Now, everybody's going to have different thresholds. That's why everyone's cancer is unique. Every cancer journey is unique for every single patient. That conversation has to be had with you and your physician. What is acceptable to me? What are my goals? What is an acceptable quality of life? And based on that, we can then nail down what is the best treatment. Perhaps even if I progress, I want to be aggressive and I want to try something else. Even if the response rates aren't great, using treatment X, right? That may be wrong for one patient, and it may be very much right for another patient. It's the same decisions that have to be, you know, kind of slowly thought through, even for decisions involving hospice, right? Because hospice is not a bad decision either. It's in the context of, what are the tools that I have in my toolbox? What are my goals? And based on those, maybe the best treatment for me is no treatment at all, right? And so it's having that trust and that conversation to understand what are the viable options and what is reasonable to me, right?
What do I have? Where is it? And what am I going to do about it? I think that's a really good jumping off point for a lot of people. So we appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, Joy. Appreciate it. Pleasure to be on.
Thanks, everyone. We hope this was very helpful for you and your loved ones. And as we always say, stay strong and live fearless.